So my name is Lindsay Jones. I own Blind Eye Restoration in Columbus, Ohio, where we do historic architecture and art restoration. I've always kind of been a preservationist, but I didn't really understand or have the vocabulary for it until I realized it was a professional field. And basically, I didn't do that until I was looking into grad school. So that was probably the time when that actually happened. I have always been in construction. I started going to work with my dad at his home repair business when I was 12, basically just too old for daycare. And I was doing that summers all the way up until college, where I studied art and architecture, and then ended up in AmeriCorps at Habitat for Humanity, where I realized I just was really good at construction. I had other interests, but it just was something that fit for me. And so I went back and studied construction management. And it was still, I was good at it. I felt comfortable there, but it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. And that's when, like I said, I was looking into graduate schools and I discovered historic preservation. So I went to grad school for that, had a lot of education for ending up being a contractor. But I got a couple of jobs in grad school, internships that provided me with the experience of being both a project manager, a contractor, and a preservationist. And it led me to a full-time position in San Francisco, where I was a construction project manager for ARG conservation. And in that role, I was pulled a lot into working with the objects conservators. When they realized that I had hand skills, I basically got an apprenticeship. And it was a fantastic opportunity to learn that historic architecture, it's still construction, but there are a couple of different just it's sort of a different mentality when you approach it, and how we treat historic things, how we come back from undoing improper treatments, that kind of thing. And it just really brought me kind of full circle in my career, just having that opportunity to tie everything together. Currently, I do a lot of administration. I do, I'm working basically in the shop, but I'm doing a lot of estimates. I get to organize educational events. I do talks with the local nonprofits, doing homeowner hands-on things. But I'm still in the shop, and during the summers when it gets really heavy, I could still 5 days a week be working with the ladies out in the field. Last summer, we were kind of slammed on one particular travel job, which thanks to COVID made things complicated. And the only time I could check emails, like, before bed. But that's kind of the joy of owning your own business, where every day is a little bit different, but every day I'm also dealing with historic buildings, people who are passionate about historic buildings, and learning something new all the time. I'm a young woman in preservation. I'm a young woman in business. I am a contractor in an academic field, like graduate level academic field. I am a tradesperson in a chemistry laboratory kind of field. It feels like there's something at every point in what I do where there's something telling me that you shouldn't be going here. You're supposed to be. And I find that this particular job means that I have to be a little bit of everything, and you just have to push through and persevere and just know that this is a passion, and that it's worked out. We do really great work and we're proud of what we do. And I need to remind myself periodically that those roadblocks are there because other people haven't pushed through them, and we're trying to do that. get so much joy, like a ridiculous amount of joy, seeing my crew of women just smash these projects. They have done such fantastic work. Last year, we recreated this gigantic decorative theater ceiling with a crew of 4 of us. And it's fantastic. It's just like, in my mind, one of the great marvels of the world at this point, because we walked onto that job site and we were looked at like we were a bunch of freaks. And not that people were unkind, but a couple of comments about, you're a woman, kind of mentality. And we just did such a fantastic job. And I love that I was able to create the safe space that women could come and work in the trades and also be passionate about working with their hands, and that my women can now be role models for other women who are potentially interested in going into the trades, or potentially younger people who would like to just learn more about working with their hands, or homeowners who have never thought that they could fix their own windows before. And I really have a long-term goal to create an educational space somehow in my company, or a wing of the company, or something where we can do trades training and hopefully encourage more women, and maybe even have kids workshops where we teach hands-on working with tools, things like that, because it creates so much confidence, even if you're not somebody who wants to be a tradesperson, because it's tough and dirty and every day is very hard sometimes. But the confidence that builds, seeing these things come to fruition, and the completion of a job that's taken so long and so much work, it's just so gratifying to watch. And I really love that. For anybody trying to get into it, and I know preservation can be tricky and any job can be tricky during the pandemic, I have actually recently gone through a hiring cycle for our own company. And the people that stood out for me were not necessarily the people that had hands-on experience. It was the people who were excited to learn and to be a part of this group and what we do, and our greater mission overall, even if this isn't their intended career path for the rest of their life, even if right now they're just like, you guys seem like you'd be great to work for, and I would love to be a part of that particular mission. Those are the people that we got excited about. And when I was looking for jobs, I know that when I told my academic advisors what I was interested in doing and what I wanted my thesis to be, which was particularly talking to tradespeople about learning about preservation and expanding the field in the contracting realm, where contractors really have their hands on these projects and should be more aware of what it is we're trying to do, and expanding that passion to them as well. And they didn't really kind of get it at the time. I think being passionate about it and pushing particular little pigeonhole things sometimes, like teach yourself a spectrum, all the things. If you're interested in it, teach it yourself, but also really just go for that one thing. If you were really passionate about it, even if people have kind of put up a sorry, there's nothing here for you mindset, you'll get there eventually. And you may take sidetracks, different jobs, different careers that maybe don't seem like they connect entirely. But when you bring everything back together, having that one goal in mind and making sure that you can kind of see how these different jobs, experiences, learning opportunities can all work towards that, it'll end up taking you where you want to go. Trying to get into construction, trying to be taken seriously in what I'm doing, is just trusting in yourself and trusting that you know where you're going and that you have the education to get yourself there, and hoping that passion will pull you through. I guess I did feel a little unemployable, which is how I ended up starting my company. So maybe that's something, another option for anybody who feels like they can't find a space for themselves out there, is to create your own space as well, because this has not been easy. I don't necessarily recommend it for a fun time, but it's worked out, and I'm enjoying myself these days. So this past year, we worked with the Columbus Museum of Art on Amia Robinson's house. She was an artist who was really important to Columbus, Ohio, the country. Black artist, did a lot of really great work. And when she died, she passed her estate on to the museum, and they were turning her home into an artist residency. And the really cool thing about her space was that she painted on the walls, and just anything she wanted to do, she just all over her house. Her house wasn't necessarily just a space to live in. She made it a part of her life. Her house was an artwork of her own. And in the kitchen, there was this kind of crazy tile assortment mosaic that she had done on the floor. She wasn't a big cook. She used her kitchen as like a space to display this giant sculpture that she had. But on the floor, all of this tile was in there, and she had done it in a way that she was more passionate about the art piece than necessarily the longevity of the materials. So when the museum came in, they found it was kind of torn apart. There were pieces missing and gaps in it, and it wasn't really a safe thing to leave in place as it was for the potential artists who were being moving in. So they ended up taking some pictures of it and taking it up. And they saved all the pieces in some boxes, but they kind of had the idea that they couldn't do much with it. So they had it saved to the side. And then someone at the Columbus Landmarks told them about me and said, maybe Lindsay can do something. And so I went in and I took a look at the space and the tiles that they had. And the photos were not the best, but we had enough from a couple of different angles that we could put together a pretty good representation of what it was and fill in some of the spaces that were missing that had been lost previously, and gave them an estimate for it. And it wasn't a money-making job, but it was a great opportunity to be a part of the history of this fantastic artist in Columbus. And it's a beautiful piece, and it makes me want to do a mosaic in my house. But it was something that it was not in great condition. It was not something it was actually meant to be walked on originally, even as it was a floor mosaic. But we made it work, and it adds so much to that space. And I'm so glad that we were able to help them with that. You know, I think a loss for me is, it's just really anytime I'm driving around town and you see somebody's wood windows on the street and new windows, replacement windows going in. And coming from a place where we fix everything, there is no asking me how far gone is too far gone, because there is no wood window that is not repairable. And so seeing that our message hasn't reached absolutely everybody, and that there are still people out there who believe that replacements are the only way to go, just kind of hurts my soul and feels like there's a loss, you know, every other day driving around in a historic district and seeing that kind of thing. But that's, you know, partly why I'm so passionate about trying to get out and talk to people about this stuff, because I think that when this happens, you can bet that whoever did it just has never had this kind of conversation and gone over the benefits of keeping these repairable historic materials. Fortunately, have to be out a little bit more. I mean, if we're going to continue to get work, it's hard for me to keep my girls paid if I don't have them working. And we've done, I'm aiming to do some more educational outreach this year, where we have an opportunity to reach populations that we haven't in the past, to talk and teach workshops. And I've been able to bring one of my longest term people on to do more administrative work and estimating and website work, so that she's not constantly having to be crowded into a space somewhere with somebody, either some of our other employees or having to be out in the field all the time. And things that can help us move forward, it's tricky. So we've really adopted a, you know, safe practices in the workplace. We, you know, hand washing signs and making sure everybody wears masks. We wear masks all of the time, anywhere we go, in people's homes and, workspaces. If there's just two employees that happen to have to be in the studio at the same time, making sure that everybody's being as safe and healthful as possible. We did hit a point back when the first shutdown happened where we had to close for about a week to try and rearrange and make sure that we had enough to get through that time period and trying to stay out of people's homes as much as possible. But since then, we've developed a really good way of getting in and out as fast as possible whenever we do have to be in a place with any other people. And we've got a really great crew who has been incredibly honest about any time when they've potentially been exposed or times when they had to stay separated from our crew because they needed to isolate in case they had to go see family members, things like that. So it's been tricky, but we've gotten through it really well, thankfully. So we reference the Window Sash Bible. There's a couple of books out there, handful really now, I think, that reference all the different parts of windows, talking about muttons and rails and styles and glazing and the difference between glass and glazing putty. A lot of that in particular is a special vocabulary. The National Park Service preservation standards, a couple of specific material preservation briefs, that's what it was, preservation briefs that are really helpful whenever we're researching anything, just from the get-go. If there's any base information that we need to look up, that's the first place we go. And then in general, we just keep buying books and researching and going on or taking classes. One of my employees is taking Revit classes right now. And so she's taking a little time off during the week, like a half hour. She leaves early so she can go take online Revit classes, which we're hoping to potentially integrate into the business as a service that we can offer somehow. We're going to be offering hands-on workshops for the crew with professionals who work in stained glass and decorative painting and masonry, things like that, where they can come in, be kind of distanced, but still give us an overview of the particulars of their field. So we're constantly educating ourselves. And I, for one, am just always devouring information. So any kind of book that comes out that is preservation related, even in the slightest, materials focused too, is something that we try to get our hands on a lot. So it's not always one particular thing. Preservation briefs, and the rest of the standards. There's the Association of Preservation Technology I'm a part of. They're really great for finding resources through. There's the Association of Conservation. I'm going to say AIC. AIC is what it is. I'm getting the acronyms mixed up. But they're really good. They also have a standards for conservation practice, and a lot of it is, kind of a do no harm, make everything reversible mentality. But they have a resource link on their website that we can go and look at if we have any particular material questions as well. And Facebook groups. We have a really great group, especially of window preservationists, where all of these contracting companies are all together and new companies start all of the time. And so they have a free place to go on there and ask questions of people that have been on there forever. And they can be a part of the Window Preservation Alliance is another website where you can go and look up other window contractors. If you get a question about work from somebody who isn't necessarily in your area, you can find contractors outside of your area that may be closer to them. And it's been a really great resource just talking to those people. You can kind of find mentors in a bunch of different places. So looking those up and just finding who your community is has been probably even more helpful. Yeah.